How's it going, everybody? Too Spooky here. And with both the release of Season 7 of the anime and the manga almost reaching its conclusion after 10 years, I realized it's probably about time for the next My Hero Academia Top 10. In the previous one, we counted down the top 10 best quirks, and with a hefty like goal of 15,000 likes for this video to happen, you guys United States of smashed that goal almost immediately. So apologies on the wait for this one, but going forward, I'm gonna make it a little more difficult if you want another one of these top 10s, bumping up the next like goal to 20,000 likes. So if you like what you see today, make sure to obliterate that like button, and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss it when the next top 10 drops. Now without any more delay, let's count down the top 10 mutant quirks in My Hero Academia. For those who aren't familiar, or those who just need a little bit of a refresher, quirks generally come in 3 different categories: emitter types, transformation types, and mutant types, with mutant type quirks being those that usually involve some sort of permanent body abnormality that directly relates to their quirk's power. These abnormalities obviously come in many different varieties and provide numerous different abilities depending on the quirk, but one example of a mutant quirk would be Jiro's earphone jack quirk, that grants her long, extendable headphone cables as earlobes, allowing her to plug them into virtually anything and even amplify sound waves. The reason I wanted to look at the top 10 mutant quirks is because I noticed while looking back at my top 10 best quirks list that not a single mutant quirk made the cut. Which is surprising when you notice that multiple of the top heroes in the series have mutant quirks. And to make matters worse, multiple mutant quirks made it onto my worst quirks list. So I wanted to reevaluate mutant quirks as a whole, and give a little spotlight to the 10 I think are the very best of that category. And maybe even see if I overlooked one that might be one of the best quirks of all time. My rules for formatting this list are very simple, in that I'm looking to see which mutant quirks would make their respective users the best heroes or villains, by examining their overall versatility, strength, and anything else that would put them a step above the rest. Beware of my awful pronunciation and potential spoilers, as while I won't be touching on specific plot points, I am touching upon each of these quirks at their currently displayed state within the manga. And with the manga reaching its conclusion, it's safe to say some of these quirks have already demonstrated everything they're going to be capable of. With all that in mind, let's begin with some honorable mentions. The 2 quirks I wanted to give the honor of a mention would be Life Force and Invisibility. Life Force belongs to Kyudai Garaki, and also All for One. Life Force essentially doubled the user's natural lifespan, and caused Kyudai to age very slowly as a result. Obviously, this one doesn't offer too much in terms of making someone a good hero or villain, but having essentially 150 to 200 years of life could allow someone to cook up some devious plans that affect multiple generations. So I wanted to at least give it a little nod for its potential. Like, without this quirk, All for One wouldn't have been able to execute any of his plans, because he would have been dead a long time ago. And Invisibility belongs to Toru Hagakude. Invisibility kind of speaks for itself, but in addition to being completely invisible, Toru is also able to reflect light to varying degrees, which when combined with other light-related quirks, can end up being quite useful. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed that Invisibility didn't make the cut, because it's one of my personal favorite superpowers in general, and there's just so much you could do with it from a hero or villain's perspective.
I know what kind of man you are.
However, even though there are so many useful things you could do as a completely invisible person, this power comes from a world where some extremely destructive and broken quirks exist. Like, New Order and Overhaul exist, and you want me to say Invisibility is one of the best quirks? I just can't do it, much to my dismay. Number 10. Frog. This quirk belongs to Tsuyu Asui. Frog gives Tsuyu pretty much all the characteristics of actual frogs, which includes being able to cling to walls, a 20-meter long tongue, the ability to secrete toxins from her stomach, the ability to camouflage herself with her surroundings, and much more. I should clarify, I'm a little biased with this one because I love frogs, easily one of my favorite animals. So while I know right off the bat it's not one of the best quirks of all time or anything, but because it has such a high level of versatility, especially among the mutant type quirks, I can't help but still believe it's one of the best in that category. Just looking at our honorable mentions, Tsuyu has the ability to camouflage herself to near invisibility, so while it's not completely invisible like Toru, it's good enough to fool most people, which, adding on all the other abilities the frog quirk possesses, it's clear why this one already beat out invisibility. But if we look deeper at all of Frog's abilities and what potential abilities you could cook up, it's clear that this one is very useful in both a hero or villain's possession. As a hero, you can swing around the city with your tongue to help people, swim at great speeds in the water for water rescue, and even subdue people with your stomach toxin to stop enemies, allowing Tsuyu to help in numerous rescue efforts or to stop pesky foes on the street. Or as a villain, you could scale walls and turn invisible to be the ultimate frog burglar. And since you can also store items in the lining of your stomach to regurgitate them later, you could just hide your stolen goods right in your stomach. Or, if we want to look at this quirk's potential, the general idea of this quirk is that Frog allows the user to do pretty much anything that a frog can do, but is not limited to a single species of frog, meaning that if the user were to have access to deadly poisons via various species of poison dart frogs, the user could be toxic enough to easily knock out or even kill potential foes with a single touch, as some poison dart frog species contain some of the most deadly toxins on the planet. But since this is only spitballing possibilities, take that one with a grain of salt. Regardless, Frog is a very well-rounded quirk for a hero or villain, which is why I believe it deserves a spot on the list of the best mutant quirks. But my main reason for keeping it at the bottom of our list is because it has a nasty weakness to colder temperatures, where the user will basically enter a hibernation state if the weather falls below a certain threshold, meaning this quirk could only be useful in warmer or more consistent conditions, hindering its overall usefulness and keeping it dormant at number 10. Number 9. Food. This quirk belongs to Soramitsu Tabe. Food allows Soramitsu to bite through, chew, and digest anything. And I mean anything. So long as they are able to come into direct contact with their target. The only real weakness being that the user's stomach has a hard time with toxic substances, and needs to be close enough to bite their targets directly for this quirk to work at all. But outside of that, their stomach has been described as bottomless, meaning they could potentially keep eating forever. This one is pretty self-explanatory, at least in my opinion, as if the user were a villain, they could just eat all of their opponents, or anything their opponents might throw at them, only being stopped by making Soramitsu consume poison and giving him a little tummy ache, or finding a way to subdue him physically without being in range of his bite. And as a hero, this quirk could be great for rescue efforts, as Soramitsu could just bite through any debris that might be in the way, or eat a tunnel through the earth to help people escape. And in combat situations, they could just, once again, eat the limbs off their opponents to subdue and capture them, although I guess as a hero, people would probably not see them as very heroic when fighting villains, and people watching that would probably be horrified. But regardless, because this one is powerful and absolute in theory, I can't help but think it's one of the best mutant quirks out there. Because honestly, if you just put it in terms of these teeth are so powerful that they can literally just eat through solid concrete and metal and things like that, and then chew and digest them with no issues, it really opens up a huge world of possibilities.
Fuck yeah, concrete!
But because you do need to be up close and personal for this quirk to work, and many ranged quirks do exist in this universe, it does have a lot of potential to be outmatched. And because this quirk is reliant on the user's teeth, you'd have to take extra good care of those chompers. As if your teeth were to rot or fall out, you'd basically be quirkless with a permanently empty stomach. And now that I'm thinking about it, this quirk would actually kind of be torturous to have, because you'd just permanently be hungry all the time no matter how much you ate. That would actually kind of be a living hell. Yeah, number 9 sounds about right. Number 8. Semidine. This quirk belongs to Kojiro Bando. Semidine allows Kojiro to produce and spread a type of liquid glue from their head, and with the addition of their ultimate move, Glue Squall, they are able to cover a massive area with their glue pretty much in an instant. Whenever someone comes into contact with the glue substance, it will act like actual superglue and lock them in place, similar to Mineta's pop-off quirk. My reason for adding this one to the list comes from its potential alone. Sadly, Kojiro wasn't given much screen time to demonstrate his quirk outside of the Class 1A versus Class 1B arc, so there's a lot we don't know about it. Like how much glue Kojiro can produce before he can't create any more, how strong the glue actually is in terms of keeping people in place, and what could potentially allow someone to escape from the glue. But assuming we look at this one from its maximum potential, Kojiro could likely create a massive amount of this glue before he can't anymore, and spread it over a massive area to instantly subdue any foes. And through a proper diet and lots of training, he could also likely make this glue much more potent and harder to escape from, allowing him to subdue any villains as a hero or make a clean getaway by trapping heroes in place as a villain. The only issue is that this doesn't allow Kojiro much room for combat itself, but if he carried weapons, like a gun for instance, he could just trap people in place with his glue and then walk up and blow their head off. Or, if we're really looking at the possibilities here, glue is also a pretty toxic substance if ingested, so it could be used as a weapon if he force-fed it to people. But much like the last quirk, that would probably be a little bit too brutal to witness. Overall, I think this one has a lot of potential from both the perspective of a hero or villain, but considering this one is purely based on potential alone, it might not be as good as I'm making it out to be in reality. So because of that, I'm going to keep it near the bottom of our list at number 8. Number 7. Engine. This quirk belongs to Tenya and Tensei Ida. Engine grants the user engines in their limbs, Tenya's being located in his calves, while Tensei's are located in his elbows, which give their respective users massive speed boosts. It should be noted that Engine is similar to Gran Torino's Jet quirk, however Engine is vastly superior in my opinion. Namely because Engine grants the user speed boosts that allow them to run at some insane speeds, with the absolute highest being the ultimate move, Maximum Speed, which allowed Tenya to boost himself at a speed so fast that he could easily run across buildings and through the air in an instant, with multiple other levels of speed in between that. And because of the laws of physics, you could only imagine what would happen if you were hit with a kick or punch after one of those ultimate boosts. So not only could you obliterate someone with a single speed boost attack, which allows for tons of potential as a villain, but you can also travel immense distances in short periods of time, allowing you to be the ultimate first responder as a hero. The only reason this quirk isn't higher on the list is because it does have numerous drawbacks. Firstly, you need to essentially fuel yourself like a car to actually use this quirk, with Tenya drinking massive amounts of fruit juice for instance. Next, the engine's mufflers can be clogged, instantly slowing down or completely halting the user as a result. Thirdly, the user's engines can overheat and even explode if they are pushed beyond their limit, requiring the user to allow them to cool down in between speed boosts or use the boosts sparingly. And finally, for this quirk's maximum potential to be reached, the user has to physically rip out the mufflers from their limbs and allow them to regrow after extended use of their quirk, which upon regrowing makes the engines much stronger. However, this method is noted to be extremely painful. So while super speed is obviously a very great but very underrated power, in this case, it simply has too many drawbacks for me to justify its placement any higher on this list. So Engine stalls out at number 7. Number 6. Extendo Hair. This quirk belongs to Nagamasa Mora. And also Vines. This quirk belongs to Ibata Shiozaki. Extendo Hair grants Nagamasa the ability to grow and manipulate their hair, with the hair itself noted to be extremely durable and borderline indestructible, which allows Nagamasa to create armor out of his hair for defensive purposes, and also allows him to do things like capture and subdue multiple individuals within his hair. While Ibata's Vines quirk also grants her the ability to grow and manipulate her hair, but instead of having normal hair, she instead has spiky vines, allowing her to also create armor or defensive barriers out of these vines, and capture multiple individuals within the vines as well. I decided to put these two together because they essentially do the same thing, although one is plant matter while the other is actual hair. The only real difference between the two being that apparently the vines have an additional weakness of needing sunlight and water to continue to grow past their limit, and can be severed with enough force. While extendo hair is noted to be pretty much indestructible with no known weakness or drawback, making it the superior of the two if you had to choose one. That said, I would be willing to bet that extendo hair probably does have a weakness like fire or something that we just haven't seen yet. Either way, being able to create armor and defensive barriers on the fly, along with manipulate your own hair for multiple purposes, could create a whirlwind of potential for heroes and villains alike. And again, while this probably isn't the case, if the hair in question were actually 100% indestructible like we've been led to believe, this ability is actually way more broken than you'd initially think, and should probably be higher on this top 10 as a result. But because I believe that probably isn't the case in actuality, I can't in good faith place it any higher than number 6. However, if it's ever clarified that the hair is genuinely indestructible, you can expect this one much higher, and we could just disregard vines entirely. But going off the information we have for both of these quirks, they're clearly some of the most competent mutant quirks we've seen, and deserve some recognition with a placement on the list of the best. Number 5. High Specs. This quirk belongs to Nezu. High Specs essentially makes Nezu a super genius, as their intelligence is noted to be far above humans in general, granting them a photographic memory and the ability to form elaborate plans and strategies in an instant.
Boy, he got that shit on though.
This one is also pretty self-explanatory, as knowledge is power. And with an intellect far above humans, this could make Nezu an incredible hero or villain, as their ingenious plans could benefit whichever alignment Nezu would choose to side with on a massive scale. Considering I myself only have a P-brain IQ of 119, I can't even begin to fathom the possibilities of being a super genius. So looking into potential scenarios for both sides of this one seems a little bit redundant. But I think we can all agree this quirk is easily one of the best mutant quirks out there, considering its potential. But because the world of My Hero Academia is filled with quirks that can cause continental destruction, having brain power is only going to get you so far realistically. Which is why I can't place this one any higher than right in the middle of the list at number 5. However, with a brain that large, I'd bet if anyone could find a way to counteract every quirk in the My Hero Academia universe, it would be Nezu. So this one should not be underestimated. Number 4. Orsinus. This quirk belongs to Kugo Sakamata. Orsinus grants Kugo many orca-related abilities on land or at sea, which includes generally enhanced strength, durability, and speed that is even more effective underwater. But the real power of this quirk comes from the hypersonic waves it's able to produce, which are noted to be so powerful that they will instantly paralyze anyone within the near vicinity, and are capable of completely obliterating ice, diminishing fire, and taking care of other environmental attacks. The only real weakness of this quirk being that extreme heat will dehydrate Kugo rather quickly. However, Kugo notably keeps bottles of water on hand to rehydrate himself if he were to come in contact with any heat quirk users, making this weakness irrelevant in most situations so long as he's prepared. Being a former top 10 hero, it's easy to see why this quirk is so useful and powerful, as so long as his opponent is susceptible to sound, Kugo is able to overwhelm them with his brute strength, and then completely paralyze them with his hypersonic waves, all while using the same hypersonic waves to defend himself from any incoming attacks, so the heroes should count their blessings that he's on their side, as that same power could be devastating in the hands of a villain, able to paralyze any hero that would stand against them. Good morning, Krusty Krab! The only real reason Orsinus isn't any higher than number 4 on this list is because the quirks above it are simply better in my opinion. But regardless of its placement, the power of Orsinus should not be understated, and it easily earned its place as one of the best. Number 3. Rabbit. This quirk belongs to Rumi Usagiyama. Rabbit grants Rumi numerous characteristics of actual rabbits, which on paper doesn't sound very good, but nothing could be further from the truth. As a result of her rabbit anatomy, Rumi's hearing and sense of smell is greatly enhanced, which allows her to locate individuals and fights from great distances away, which already could be good for a hero or villain. As a hero, it could help her locate missing individuals or those in trouble very quickly, or as a villain, it could alert her to any incoming heroes who might try and stop her evil deeds. But her real power comes from her leg strength, as she's not only able to jump great distances with incredible speed, but the sheer physical power held within these legs cannot be understated, as they're capable of smashing through concrete with a single kick, generating enough wind pressure to instantly extinguish fire, and even being strong enough to straight up rip an enhanced Nomu's head off with only her thighs. Honestly, having this done to me would fix literally all of my problems. Regardless, considering how strong and durable we've seen these Nomu are, the fact her raw strength is able to decapitate them is quite the feat. And even after having some of her limbs amputated and replaced with artificial ones, this hasn't stopped her destructive rampages in the slightest, proving that nothing can get in the way of this one. And if all that weren't enough, her rabbit instincts also grant Rumi something akin to that of Spider-Man's spider sense, that alerts her of any incoming danger so she can avoid it if need be. So with incredible super strength, immense speed, enhanced senses, and even a wee-woo sensor, I can't see any reason why this quirk isn't one of the very best when it comes to mutant quirks. And as one of the top 10 heroes in the series, it's no question that Rabbit deserves a spot in this top 10, hopping in at number 3. Number 2. Fierce Wings. This quirk belongs to Keigo Takami. Fierce Wings provides Keigo with a set of large wings that contain many individual feathers. With these wings, Keigo is able to fly at incredible speeds, but the true power of this quirk comes from the individual feathers, as Keigo is able to detach as many of these feathers as he wants at will, and control their every movement with his mind, allowing him to do things like save multiple people from falling or just get them away from danger by carrying them away with his feathers telepathically, with the feathers themselves also providing Keigo with information about his surroundings by picking up all nearby vibrations. While the exact number of feathers is unknown, it's likely somewhere close to 100. These feathers are also noted to be very durable, and can even be wielded as powerful blades, which were demonstrated being sharp enough to cut down various Nomu, which, like we mentioned, are quite physically durable. This one might be a little bit divisive among people watching, but I truly believe this quirk is one of the best mutant quirks we've seen, sheerly because of its overall versatility as is. With the ability to control all of these physically durable feathers telepathically, it opens up so many possibilities for what you could potentially do with them. If Keigo does have roughly 100 of these feathers, you can already take on an entire army all by yourself if you're able to use them effectively. Or even better, use them to save 100 people at once. And with all the recon potential from the vibrations, it's perfect for information gathering in any scenario. And since we saw Keigo act as both a hero and a villain by going undercover, we already know how effective this one could be in both scenarios. The only real downfall with this one is that it's very weak to fire, and if the feathers are destroyed, it takes at least 2 days for them to grow back, assuming the quirk factor isn't permanently damaged. Meaning that if enough of these feathers are taken out, Keigo not only will be unable to fly away, but would be completely out of commission until they grew back. Either way though, Keigo was the number 2 pro hero for a reason. And while a lot of that popularity is thanks to his own intellect and strategy, he was able to execute his excellence thanks to this quirk, which is why I believe it deserves to fly at the top of this list. But that said, there's still one more mutant quirk that I believe is even better than this one. Number 1. Comic. This quirk belongs to Manga Fukidashi. Comic allows manga to bring gigantic, physical onomatopoeia in the form of Japanese words into reality simply by speaking them, with these onomatopoeia having the same characteristics or effects of the sound they represent. As a result of this quirk, manga's head is a comic speech bubble. Now, unfortunately, I know there's at least a handful of people watching this video who failed English class, and therefore probably don't even know how to properly use pronouns, let alone know what an onomatopoeia is. So for those people who are utterly clueless right now, onomatopoeia are any words that sound exactly like the noise being described. So for example, the word sizzle is an onomatopoeia because sizzle is the sound the word itself is describing. So in the context of this quirk, manga would materialize giant Japanese characters that form the word sizzle in Japanese, and this giant word would also contain the characteristics of that sound, meaning we can theorize that the materialized word might be sizzling hot to the touch. We've only seen a few examples of what this quirk is actually capable of, but my reason for believing this is easily the best mutant quirk is because of its limitless potential. There are so many onomatopoeia out there that manga could materialize instantly based on the situation at hand. For a few potential examples, he could use the word zap to create electrically charged letters, scratch to either damage opponents or make them very itchy, barf to make people sick, snore to make people sleepy, and burst to make things explode. And that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you could theoretically come up with. And the real kicker to this one? The only weakness is that materializing multiple words in rapid succession can give manga a sore throat. That's it. Like, you have limitless potential of what abilities you can spawn into reality in the form of giant, durable words, but all you need to do to counteract your own weakness is just carry some cough drops for f***'s sake? That's incredibly broken. In all honesty, I think I may have overlooked this one when putting together my overall best quirks list, because this one could make someone an incredible hero or deadly villain if used correctly. And to make matters even more crazy, one of the only examples we've seen of the onomatopoeia in question was the word damp, which acted as a humidifier. This is crucially important because damp is less of an onomatopoeia and more like an adjective. So, again, theoretically, this quirk might be even more broken than we originally thought if it could also materialize descriptive words or adjectives. An example of what I mean is you could spawn the adjective nuclear to essentially bring down a nuclear bomb.
Bruh.
But again, that's just a possibility because damp is a weird example to show within the story as an onomatopoeia because it really isn't an onomatopoeia. Either way, if adjectives are out of the question, this quirk is still easily the best mutant quirk we've seen, and it easily deserves its placement at number 1. But there you have it, everybody. The top 10 mutant quirks in My Hero Academia. Hopefully you enjoyed this one and agree with my list. If not, I'd love to hear what your top 10 mutant quirks would be in the comments section down below. Once again, if this video hits 20,000 likes, another My Hero Academia top 10 will be on the way. And if there's any specific top 10 ideas you'd like to see in the future, be sure to comment below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button with notifications on so you don't miss the next one. I've got a lot of cool projects cooking in the background currently, so be sure to stay tuned. You can also follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/2spookster to hang out with me during some live streams, or follow my various social media which will be in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon with the next video.
I've gone cold to everything that you say.